In every book and magazine, it even has its own revolution. Now this is gonna blow your mind.
Hi, I'm Elladee Brown, former racer, current freerider, instructor, ambassador, and overall lover of mountain bikes. When I first started riding back in 1987, there wasn't the opportunity to learn how to mountain bike. You simply went out and rode the trails via trial and error. Since I started riding, the terrain, the obstacles, the technical trail features, and not to mention the bikes have dramatically changed. The depths of skills needed to ride safely are now greater than ever before. West Coast Style Freeride Fundamentals is all about taking your riding to the next level. In this video, we'll show you how to ride faster, smoother, and with more style. And we'll be featuring world-class guest riders Ryan Leech and Shaums March and a host of other talent. But first, let me introduce Joan Jones and Daamiann Skelton. Hey, Joan.
Hi, Els. Hey, Els.
Joan is a former elite racer and director of the West Coast School of Mountain Biking. Daamiann is a two-time former national downhill champ and freeride instructor. Both Joan and Daamiann certify guides and instructors around the world through the CMIC Canadian Mountain Bike Instructor Certification Program. So, where do we start, guys?
Well, why don't we begin with the fundamentals?
Mountain biking is such a technical sport. The skill set required today is greater than ever before. So, Joan, how does one become a better freerider?
We have a lot to look at in this DVD. We'll look at the skills needed for taking air, for riding rock faces, and for cornering. But before we get into any of that, we really should take a look at the freeride basics. Those things needed to stay balanced and stable on the trail and to anticipate the challenges that lay ahead.
And balance is key to solid riding. So, Damo, where do we begin?
Well, let's begin with the neutral position, which is fore-aft balance on the bike, essentially trying to keep both the front and the rear wheel equally weighted, no matter what the bike is doing underneath you. So, if a rider's cruising along on level ground, you're going to see the hips high, arms and legs extended with a slight bend in the elbows and knees, and the pedals are going to be level and equally weighted. As that rider starts to head downhill, the hips are going to move back. As the rider goes uphill, the upper body's going to need to move forward to maintain that neutral position.
And to maintain equal weight on both wheels as well.
Exactly.
So we have the fore and aft position. What about the side to side?
Well, we call this bike body separation, and this is side to side or lateral balance on the bike. And you can use it descending, cornering. It's used all over the place. A great exercise to practice this, as we can see here, is riding along in that straight line in that neutral position. Extend one arm down slightly forward and lean that bike to one side. Shoulders and hips are going to shift slightly to the other side, and it's important to have those knees wide apart in a cowboy stance and allow that bike to move between the legs naturally.
Okay, so there's the fore and aft, the side to side, and what about the up down?
The up-down motion we call pressure control, and this is moving up and down of the body over the bike to weight or unweight the wheels as you're riding on the trail. You would lower the shoulder and the hips down to weight those wheels for a little more traction. By extending the arms and legs, you're going to unweight the wheels for riding over the rough stuff.
Awesome. So we've got neutral position, we've got bike body separation, and we have pressure control. Joan, what other skills do we need to become a better free rider?
Let's get right into braking, starting with that idea of keeping one finger on the brake lever all the time while we're in the air, on the ground, free riding, a finger stays there. And to do that, you usually need to move the brake levers inboard so that you get a natural feel with your finger. And from there, you're going to anticipate the need for braking, always gentle increases in pressure, gentle releasing in pressure. You know what we're avoiding there? The grab.
Yeah. The mitt full.
Yeah, the mitt full that sends you over the bars. When you do use your front brake in particular, there's a tendency to be thrown forward. When you're descending, you also feel like you're being thrown forward. So we need to brace against those forces. And we do that with the bracing leg. There's a nice picture of Daamiann riding down a rock face. You'll see the heel is down on her forward foot, and that angles the platform of the pedal, lets her hold her whole body with a nice bracing leg behind the pedal, keeps you from going forward over the bars very nicely.
So you got that bracing leg working. Now what about the upper body, Joan?
Similar idea. We're going to brace with our arms. They're in a natural sort of bow, strong bow kind of feel to the arms, bracing against those forces, and the core of the body is engaged. Same reason, feeling stability there.
Okay, so, and what about the lower half of the body?
Well, we work our way all the way down to the feet, and then we find those nice flat pedal shoes that we like so much for free riding. And they have smooth soles, flat soles, and they're very soft. And we take that shoe, put it right over the pedal, put the arch of our foot right over the pedal, so that when we put weight on the pedal pushes up into our arch, and that allows us to grip the pedal a little bit better. In particular, we need to take hold of the rear wheel. We do that with the pedals. So when the terrain is rough, the rear wheel's being bounced around, or when we're in the air and holding the rear wheel, we go to a position that we call toe down. Put the toes down on the feet, push back, pull up a little bit, and that will allow you to grip the pedals and hold on to the rear wheel.
Okay, and then of course there's eye movement, right? Looking where you want to go, because that's where your body follows.
That's such a wonderful thing to really understand about riding, is that the eyes always do it first. And the eyes start with scanning the trail ahead and identifying those spots where we don't want to go. And from there, they pick the line that we're going to ride on, and then we go one step further with that, which is just to develop some commitment for that line, something to strongly hold our eyes to that line so that we don't tend to waver and look at those places where we don't want to go. The problem with getting so committed to a line is sometimes it's difficult to change your commitment. We actually practice that skill too. It's the beginning of our safe exit moves. So we can see a picture here of Daamiann riding along just a 2x4, working on that idea of moving her head, picking a new line, and quickly changing her commitment so she can ride safely away. So that's basically it. We've got the balance, we've got the braking, pedal position, eye movement. We put it all together, and we call this a nice ready state, and that's the way we are on the trail when we're riding.
The basic skills we've just covered are instrumental to progressing to bigger and badder things. Now let's take a look at young ripper Stevie Bea and his trials and buddy Dylan McRae rip it up on some sweet lines using those basic skills. The West Coast is famous for its skinnies, otherwise known as elevated lines. And we're not that picky. A skinny could be a log or a fallen branch, high or low off the ground, or a ladder bridge cleverly built to avoid an unrideable or sensitive area. Let's go take a look at Ryan Leech, Manifesto Trials rider, riding some sweet but simple skinny lines that take us back to a host of skills that we learned in West Coast Style 1. As you've just seen, simply riding a skinny line is not your only concern. You must have an exit strategy in place in case you need to bail out. Review and practice this often. You need it to become instinctual. So Joan, we've learned how to get off of a skinny. Tell us a little bit about getting onto the skinny.
First stage for getting on is take a walk. Look at the skinny, look at the ground around the skinny, figure out what exit moves can work in that situation, stick them in your toolbox, be ready to pull them out if you need them. And then go back, think about speed. If you go too slow, you're going to have problems with your lateral balance. If you go too fast, you're going to take away from your reaction time for getting off the skinnies. So middle chain ring in the front, 2 to 3 down from the top and the back should work nicely for you. Get into that ready state, pick the line, commit to it, and on you go.
So okay, we've learned how to get off of a skinny, we've learned how to get on a skinny. What about staying on it?
That's really important to stay on that skinny for sure. And to do that, you need to keep the front wheel really steady. So a few things will help with that. First, bring the shoulders forward so they're over the handlebars. That will put more weight on your hands and more weight on the front wheel. Keep the head nice and still so that it doesn't throw off your balance. Shoulders are quite steady as well. And the hands, avoid steering the front wheel because that's going to take you right off the line, as you know. Instead, you can push on the end of the bars and let the bike move side to side under you.
Okay, so we're keeping our upper body quite still, weight over the front end of the bike. What are we doing with the lower part of the body?
Well, you're not on the saddle, as we know. We're in that ready state, standing tall. Just use the hips, the knees, and the feet. Small side-to-side movements. Keep the balance as you're riding along the line.
Awesome. So those are some really good key examples of, or key tips on how to get on, get off, and stay on a skinny.
Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes you're riding along, you think everything's all great, and all of a sudden, things go wrong. It throws you off. So this is where you change your commitment really quickly. Take your eyes, look away, ride away if it's a really low line, or go to one of your bailout moves.
unbelievable, to watch Ryan ride cunning stunts.
He rides all those stunts one way, and then he turns around and he rides them all in the other direction.
God, unbelievable. But you can still see, as good as he is, he's in his ready state. He's got his eyes committed.
And he has his exit moves all planned out, not that he ever needs them.
But he's still got them planned
Yeah.
out. So in the meantime, let's head off with Ryan to his favorite trials in location, the beautiful beaches of the Sunshine Coast. One of the fastest growing obsessions in mountain biking today is taking air. And that's what this next segment is all about. Taking air isn't that difficult. What's more important is how and when. So let's start off with hucking. That's where you take off the edge of a ramp or a platform or something similar and land lower down on the trail. If you cannot ride off the edge of something with both wheels staying on the ground at the same time, then you may need to huck it. Well in control, of course, because that's what taking air is all about. So Joan, we want to talk about getting off of something without pedaling. This maneuver is called hucking. Where do we start?
Let's start by taking a look at the different types of hucks there are out there. The approach can vary. Sometimes it's flat, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. We'll look at those three different types of approach, and then we're also going to look at the two common types of landing, the flat landing and the tranny, the nice descending landing. It all starts with the manual front wheel lift. So, quick revision from West Coast Style 1. We take our shoulders for the preload of the front wheel to get the shoulders down, the elbows bent, and then push, put some pressure on the hands there. You'll see your fort compress. And to follow that with throwing the shoulders up and back, extending the arms. This shifts the weight back a bit. The feeling will be like the front wheel, the handlebars are just hanging off the ends of the fingertips there. This manual front wheel lift keeps the wheel up in the air for a little period of time, just long enough for the rear wheel to come to the edge of the drop so that we don't nosedive.
Okay, so basically that manual front wheel lift is our takeoff off of a huck ramp, whatever that huck ramp is.
Definitely. And we can go onto flat ground and practice it just without the huck to make sure we've got it really consistent. Get your preload, get your manual front wheel lift. Try that so that the wheel's straight in the air, finger on the brake lever. That way, if the wheel comes up too much and your weight goes too far back, just
grab that rear brake, bring that front end down.
Definitely, exactly.
Safety valve.
And then put them together so you're following one after another. Get to the point where you can recover, bringing your shoulders back over the front wheel as it comes to the ground, push off and perform another, and link it together when you can so that you're doing one right after another. This develops your anticipation, it improves your reaction time, because sometimes out there we need to pull off this move pretty quickly.
Yeah, key is definitely getting that timing down and lifting that front wheel just appropriate to the speed you're using to get off of it.
Exactly. And while you're playing there on the ground with this, you can lift the front wheel through puddles, then you don't get wet. You can use a manual front wheel lift to go over little water bars, and then when you've got that down, you're ready to start looking at timing, and then we can go to drops and start taking some air. So just a line on the ground is great to get your timing. You just want the front wheel up in the air until the rear wheel reaches the line or the edge of the drop. And then go to a low object. You'll see we've set up platforms here, and just 4 inches high, flat to flat. Again, get the timing, get the recovery, so you're landing both wheels at the same time, nice neutral position. Bring that flat to flat approach and landing up a bit to maybe a foot in the air, and then we need something else before we go any higher.
Which is more suspension?
Always a good thing. Always a good thing, that suspension. I was actually thinking there about the rear wheel. So, as you know, we don't want that rear wheel to fall away from us. After you've lifted the front wheel, puts us in a nice position here for preloading the rear wheel a little bit, because our weight has gone back a bit. Your knees bend, that preloads the feet a bit. You'll feel that pressure. Now, just before the rear wheel goes off that drop, bring the hips up, drop the toes down, push back and up a little bit. We call that clawing, and that's going to give you control over the rear wheel in the air. Now we're ready to go a little bigger with this flat to flat.
But once again, key thing here is progression. Get the little stuff dialed before moving on to the big stuff, because once you get higher and higher with the level to level, the level landing, you're going to have more of an impact. You're going to have to hold on harder. Yeah. It's going to be more of a compression.
Yeah, we have a great shot of Joan doing this. I'm glad I didn't have to do it. And you can really see Joan going off this drop and the absorption that you had to use to absorb that landing. It's really quite harsh.
Well, 7 inches in the front and 6 inches in the rear.
That's
really
helpful.
Really helpful here. But you're right, it isn't very nice. So let's get away from the flat to flat. I mean, it's a good way for beginners to start hucking, because it feels good to the eyes and to the head. Other situations are easier, and the up takeoff is a lot easier once you get accustomed to looking into space and feeling like you're just going into Never Never Land. The up approach, it actually really helps with the preload of both the front and the rear wheel, as you know, because there's a little resistance as we ride into that approach, ramp or ladder bridge or whatever it may be. So you get comfortable with that. That's a nice feeling.
Yeah, it's like drifting is, I guess, how I would describe the feeling. Drifting up.
Yes. It is really sweet, that feeling. It can be a little bit tricky, though, when the up ramp is or the takeoff is extremely short. Then it becomes necessary to respond with your body language quite quickly. The front wheel will get preloaded fast, and right after, the rear wheel is going to hit that up, that short up. And if you don't absorb quickly with the rear wheel to take control over it, it can get kicked a little bit. So you want to start slowly on those ones and build your speed up until your body can respond quickly enough to handle it.
So Damo, lots of different situations of manual front wheel lifts, but let's start with the first one, level takeoff to a downhill tranny landing.
Right on. So this is one you see quite often on the trail, and I think we should first address what a tranny is. A tranny is short for transition, and it is a downhill landing, which is so much nicer than the flat-to-flat landing. Which
Disperses the load of landing.
Exactly, it does. So it disperses the load, makes it a smoother landing, easier to ride out on. So level takeoff to tranny landing. As you approach, before you approach, you want to have a look at it, because the takeoff to the landing, you don't know what's in between. And if there's a bit of a gap in between, or whatever the gap is, you need to adjust your speed accordingly. So that's the first thing. Once you've done that, approach as you would for a flat takeoff, as we discussed earlier. You're going to preload, explode the shoulders. As the rear leaves, you're going to grab those pedals. Now this is the place where something's going to change a little bit. You're in the air, you've got the front with the handlebars, the feet with the pedals, and you can extend the arms down and hold those pedals so that you adjust the bike to the transition tranny and ride away.
Is it a real definitive push, would you say, with the arms, Damo, or is it kind of a gentle glide push as you go down into that transition?
It's a great question, because transitions are all very different. They can be quite shallow or a fairly steep transition. So when you're in the air, you're holding the bars, you've got the pedals, you need to decide how much you need to make that aggressive extension of the arms. If it's a steep tranny, really push down hard on those arms to get that bike angled and holding the pedals. Or if it's mellow, you don't need to do much at all. You're going to feel a very slight extension of the arms to adjust yourself.
Okay, and Damo, what about a situation where we have a takeoff to a downhill landing? So an uphill takeoff to a downhill tranny.
Yeah, now we've already addressed both the takeoff and the tranny landing, so let's just put it all together. The takeoff is that it helps you with the manual front wheel lift, sends that front into the air. As the rear leaves, it sends the rear into the air, as long as it's not a short, steep one. And when you're in the air, you can do the same thing as we talked about in the tranny, extending the arms down and holding the rear. Now, there are some steeper takeoffs and landings. We call these dirt jumps. We'll get to that though later. So with this, you've got that feeling of floating up in the air. What's important with that rear is that you bring the body over the bike really quickly, because we're not landing on flat. We have to get that bike landing on the downhill here. So manual, as we talked about earlier on the takeoff going up, bring the body over the bike quite quickly, grab those pedals, extend the arms down again, as we talked about for the tranny, land on the tranny and ride away.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And another kind of more, I guess, intimidating predicament for hucking is a downward takeoff to a downward landing.
Yes, yeah, and that's a really common one. You're going to see this a lot on the trail, especially on the downhill trails. And this is a great one. It's as you approach, you may, depending on how steep the downhill is, you may need to use braking here. So that's an added element on a downhill takeoff. So using braking, and when you're heading downhill, the hips are probably going to be a little bit back. So you need to shift those shoulders forward over the handlebars, preload that front wheel. It's the best way to get a good preload. At that point, if you are still on the brakes a little bit, you will have to release them, perform that manual front wheel lift. Now what's important here is you don't lift the wheel really high. You want to maintain it in the direction of travel that you are heading off the drop. It's a little bit of grab of the rear with the feet, but not a lot, because there's not a lot of movement in the air, because you're landing at the same angle as you took off from.
And probably the most complicated one that isn't so natural feeling would be the downhill takeoff to no transition, just to a flat level ground, which means that you have to do that manual front wheel lift before the transition, because there isn't one. It's not something you could simply roll down. You do need to huck it. What do we need to do there?
Yeah, and this one is a really committing move, and it's one that feels so good when you get it, not so good when you don't. And one thing is important as you're heading downhill, that you have at least a bike length before you perform the manual. It's really hard if the rear wheel is still up on the flats. So once you're entering, brakes are on, you're going to move those shoulders aggressively forward over the handlebars and preload that front wheel. At that point, if you are still on the brakes a little bit, you will have to release them, perform that manual front wheel lift. The explosion of the shoulders up and back needs to be powerful. Lift that front wheel up. And this is the key to the move as well, I find, is the extension of the legs down. Because what that does, the bike is here, you pull on the bars, you push with the legs, and it rights the bike underneath you really quickly. That way you've leveled the bike out for the landing, nice absorption, and right away.
And there's a great shot of you doing just that on Smoke and Mirrors and Whistler, coming down that steep rock face, and you just lift that front wheel and avoid that hole at the bottom very nicely.
Becoming familiar with these skills in a safe and controlled environment is essential before attempting them on the trail. And remember, ride within your comfort zone. Progress slowly. Now let's head off to one of the most infamous trails in the woodlot, trail called Platinum, and watch local trail builders Jamie, Rich, Ewan, and guest rider Isaac ride their masterpiece. That was some awesome riding on Platinum, eh? Like perfect takeoffs, awesome landings, nice transitions. Probably one of the best built trails in BC, I'd say. So Damo, tell us a little bit about dirt jumping and how to even go about it.
Yeah, well, good question. And what's really important with dirt jumping is starting with progressions and working your way through slowly. And if you have a look, this is a great example of a dirt jump area. And it has a number of consecutive tabletops, which are jumps that have a flat top without
A gap.
Without the gap, exactly. So this is where you want to start. And why don't we go through some of the progressions?
Sounds good.
All right. So we start off with riding into the jump at a moderate speed, something that you can comfortably ride up and over the jump without getting air. And you want to maintain that neutral position that we talked about earlier on. So as you ride up the jump, you're going to adjust the body, move the body forward, keeping the shoulders over the handlebars. As you ride over the top, level yourself out, and as you go down the backside, you're just going to extend the arms a little bit and ride away. And you want to do this a number of times and really feel that flow of that fore-aft movement on the bike. It's important to develop your skill for the further progressions.
So maintaining neutral position, essentially.
Exactly. And from here, the next step is coming in at the same speed, but this time we're going to add a little preload of the arms and the legs just before the ramp of the takeoff jump. So you're going to preload as you ride up the lip. You're going to explode those shoulders up and pull the handlebars towards the chest, so you're getting some air with that front wheel. Let it fall down naturally as the rear rolls over, absorb with the legs, and then ride down the backside just as you did in the first progression.
Okay, so progression is obviously very key.
Yes, it is.
Dirt jumping.
Yeah, and the time to move on to the next step is when you feel really comfortable getting that air with the front wheel and it's not steering or turning on you, and you're able to ride down the backside in a straight line. And from here, we're going to get some air with the rear wheel now, and approach with just a little bit more speed. Come in and do that preload as you did, explode the shoulders up, pull the bars towards the chest, and this time as the rear leaves, push off with the feet and grab those pedals a little bit underneath you.
You're clawing the pedals, essentially.
Exactly. You're clawing the pedals, you've got the front wheel in with the hands on the handlebars, and you have air on top of the jump here. At this point, you'll land on top and then just roll down the backside.
Okay, so how do we hit the transition?
Right on. Well, make sure you get this one dialed. Do it a number of times and develop. You've probably heard of the term pop, eh? Mm-hmm. Right. Well, this is important.
Exploding.
Exactly. Yeah. So as you're coming in, that's what the pop is that exploding of the shoulders, pushing off with the feet, grabbing that bike underneath you. That's the pop. You really want to develop this and feel comfortable landing on top before you start increasing speed. So speed is the next thing. Once you're doing that, add a little bit of speed at a time, maybe one extra pedal stroke, or let go or release the brakes a little bit earlier, and do that pop off the lip, and you're going to start finding the front wheel landing on the back side of the transition of the jump. Continue with this until you feel like you're doing that consistently. And then that final question you asked
is, how do we get to the very end point?
Yes. This point, it happens in the upper body a lot. You want to roll the shoulders. Once you pop and you're in the air, roll the shoulders, roll the elbows forward and slightly down, and that's going to angle the bike downwards to meet the transition. With the feet, you're going to hold those pedals right there. So essentially the bike will tilt down and land smoothly on the transition.
And away you go.
And away you go. So once you've got that dialed and you're feeling good, you can progress to bigger jumps. Stay with the tabletops though, that's really important. And back it off a little bit. Come in, preload and pop, land on top of the bigger jump, ride down. Preload and pop, land on top with the front wheel starting to land on the transition, right away. And then finally add that final move of the shoulders and the elbows rolling, the grab of the rear to land the transition.
Of utmost importance dirt jumping, progression. Make sure you start out on the small jumps before you work your way to the big jumps. Once you're in the air, you're committed. Make sure you have your landings and your takeoffs dialed. And now I have the great pleasure of introducing Hootie, his hot tips, and the dirt jump montage. No, folks, this is not a band, just a sick set of skills.
Hootie hot tips on gear. When dirt jumping, it always looks cool, and everybody looks real cool in their jeans and t-shirts and helmets jumping. But if you want to stay safe and you want to be able to jump at your level and above continuously, then I highly recommend the use of always a helmet, full face if you're uncomfortable and you really feel like you need some extra protection, elbows and knee pads. Heck, even shins might be a good idea. Gearing is super important when you come to the dirt jumps. Always use a gear harder than what you think you need to be able to jump the jump. One thing you need to worry about is if you need to pedal in between the jumps or you need to pedal up to the jumps, then you have a little extra oomph to be able to get there. The second thing about having a harder gear is that it allows you to be stable through your shoulders. If you're pedaling very quickly as you approach the jump, it unsettles your weight and you get all floppy on the jumps. So keep it hard, keep it stiff, keep it straight. Remember, at all times, one finger on the lever. Stay safe and stay in control. The last call for braking should always be 10 feet before the lip at least. Keep yourself square, keep it in control. Coming off the lip, if your front wheel starts to come up high, all you need to do is blip your back brake. Just incrementally, and the front wheel will come down and hopefully save your butt from going over. Tip on bails number 1, point and shoot. If you run into problems with your commitment coming into the jump, look to the side of the jump and ride your bike on out of it before you get to the top of it. Otherwise, if the jump's too big and you're going too fast, look off to the side of the jump and shoot your bike in front of you, land on your feet, and go collect your bike. Hot tip bails number 2, the step off the back. Depending on your speed, if you're too slow or too fast coming up to the lip and you're not comfortable to be able to make the jump, instead of casing on top of the takeoff lip, simply shoot the bike out while still holding the handlebars and allow the bike to shoot out and come back. That way it'll save the lip, the builders will be happier with you, less maintenance, and you can come back and try it again on a safe point. You want the 411 on what's going on at the jump park? You want to know the difference between a tabletop and a no-footed can? Check the lingo section on the DVD.
Nice, Damo. Sweet.
That's the move.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's what riding a mountain bike is all about. Negotiating the trail as you go along, knowing what skills to use for which part of the trail. And one of those skills we're going to look at right now is rolling drops. A little bit intimidating, a little bit scary. Joan, sometimes you don't know what's at the bottom or how to approach it or how to exit it. And where do we start with this one?
That's exactly it. You don't know what's at the bottom of the transition, right? So you need to get a good look, sneak preview we call it. So let's start with that top transition that can be so steep and scary for people. I know I've had trouble with them before, but you want to come into it in a nice ready state, right over that front end so that you can get a sneak look down the drop, but then you know right away if you want to stop or go. When you get that sneak preview, that also brings the shoulders right over the handlebars. And how convenient is that? Because it allows you to lunge the bike forward, push the front wheel down the drop, and moves your body right back to that position, that nice neutral position you need for riding down the rock face or A-frame, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, lots of different variations of a rolling drop out there, whether it's off a log or there's an undulation in the trail or a step down, whatever. It's still that same positioning, though, that gets you down safely.
Yeah. And I guess while we're on the rock face, it's nice to remember to be in that neutral position. You know what we see a lot, right?
Yeah.
People go in and they get too far back and they lose that feel of the front wheel, and front wheel gets light and starts wandering on them, and then they have a follow through that looks like a splat on the ground.
Yeah, forgetting about that bracing leg, that's another key element.
Yes, bracing leg for sure, and some good braking to go along with that, some gentle modulation of the rear brake so you don't go to the threshold and slide it out, and controlling your speed with the front brake, because as we know that's all important for speed control on the steep terrain.
And it's really about feeling that braking on the way down, being very aware of the surface that you're riding on is another thing.
Yeah.
If it's a slippery, greasy rock, you're probably going to be a bit more gentle on the brakes, try to square it up and approach it from a better angle.
And while you're on the way down, if it's a nice long rock face, you've got that look at what's at the bottom. And sometimes at the bottom you see, again, a very sharp transition from steep to flat. And we've talked about that earlier with the manual front wheel lift. And we talked about getting right over the front end, pushing off and actually lifting the front wheel over that whole great shot. I remember riding with Daamiann at Whistler on the Smoke and Mirrors Trail. Where she
I've seen that.
Lifts the front wheel over that.
Perfectly executed.
It is nice. Sometimes the transition at the bottom isn't quite as sharp, maybe a little bit more like this, and you know all you need to do there is just get your weight off the front wheel so you don't punch into that hole and go over the bars. So what we do in that situation is, while you're coming down the rock face, instead of being in neutral position, pull your body forward just a little bit over the front end, and just before the wheel reaches that little hole, push the front wheel out in front of you. It will lighten it up and it will roll through it quite nicely, and then bring back your body to the neutral position for the follow through.
And it's amazing the kinds of transitions that your bike will roll through, provided your body is in the right place.
Yes.
It's a miracle, actually, how steep of faces you can go down and still pull it off, no problem.
It is.
Feel smooth.
Yeah. Still scary in the head though, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's the key, is progression again, right? Progressing, doing a small drop, getting a little bit bigger, never getting in over your head.
I guess there's just one other thing we could talk about. You know, we've got the negotiating the sharp transition at the top, we've got negotiating the bottom, but sometimes when these rock faces are really short, you don't have time to lunge through the top, get over the front end, and then lunge the bike through the bottom. So the key there is simply to come over the top and not lunge the bike so far ahead of you. So stay over the front end as you go over the top, and then, as you know, we're all prepared to negotiate that transition at the bottom.
High-speed cornering is one of the most challenging skills to be learned in mountain biking. Even the pros work hard to master and develop their ability to corner at speed. So Daamiann, what kind of skills and techniques can we implement to become better cornerers at speed?
Well, let's start with the revision from the West Coast Style 1 video. And just riding through a corner, high-speed corner, you want to brake before you enter the corner and release those brakes through the corner, but make sure a finger's on the rear brake just in case you need it, so rear braking only. Turn the head, slight turn of the head looking through the corner. Lean the bike into the corner by extending that inside arm down and forward. And shoulders and the hips are going to shift to the outside of the bike. And that's our basic cornering technique.
Okay, so what about when things start to spice up a little bit on the trail? We get more aggressive, we get more speed. What do we need to do then?
Okay, there's some key bike and body movements that you definitely want to do to make adjustments for that higher speed cornering. So as we talked about, the inside arm is extended down and forward, the bike is leaning into the turn and the hips onto the outside. What we're going to add now is the inside knee is going to point into that turn. What it does is rotate the hips, so the hips are also looking into the turn, although they're still on the outside of the bike. It's really important. Third thing we can do, outside knee, you can angle that into the frame. So now you've got the inside and the outside knee looking through the turn, as well as the belly button. What this does, it sets the body up better to negotiate the corner, because you're looking and the body is moving in the direction that you're traveling.
Okay, so we got from the ankles up figured out. What about the feet on the pedals? What sorts of things do we need to remember there to make it easier for ourselves?
Well, there's two types of pedal positions for cornering. We have the level pedals and the outside foot down through a corner. And I think we'll talk first about the level pedals. And a couple of advantages with level pedals. One is that you're better able to absorb and extend with the legs with level pedals. So if the corner's rough and bumpy, you can really use those legs for absorption. Another reason is for the fore-aft movement on the bike. So if the corner starts to go downhill, descending, you can move the hips back slightly to maintain that neutral position through the corner.
Okay.
And also with pressure control, up and down movements with pressure control is something we can use. We'll look at that a little later. Finally, you can bend a little more at the waist to add a little more weight onto the front wheel for more aggressive control, traction, and steering through a corner.
So Daamiann, what are the two kinds of most common corners that one would encounter in a high-speed situation?
You'll mostly see the bermed corner, which is a favorite of most because it's a nice built-up, walled corner where you can really power into it and there's less chance of sliding out. So that one's quite popular. The other type of corner that we have is a open, flat corner where there isn't any berm. That's a little more technical because there's nothing to lean against and the wheels can slide out. And there's a place where the outside foot down might come in more handy because with that outside leg down, you can have a little more weight on it, get a little more bike body separation, and if you get into trouble, you can take that inside foot off the pedal and use it as an outrigger or dab it if you need to through the corner.
Okay, so how about in a situation where we've got a bunch of consecutive corners back to back? What method are we going to use to get in and out of those corners more quickly?
Right on. That is quite a technical skill. It's called counter-steering or aggressive counter-steering from one corner to the next. And as you know, counter-steering is steering the wheel opposite the direction you're traveling. What happens when you do this is the bike tends to dump itself into the corner. So
Better lean.
Exactly, better lean and a faster lean. So we're coming out of one corner. What we need to do is we up the bike, we turn the wheel into the new corner, and it dumps the bike down and leans it. That point, straighten the wheel out, get the hips to the outside, and ride through the new corner.
It snaps you out of the corner.
It snaps you into the corner and out of the corner.
Daamiann, you mentioned pressure control earlier. How does that apply to a cornering situation? When things start getting a little more bouncy, and also not just our fore-aft position becomes important, but the up-down as well.
Yeah, and that's something we looked at a little earlier, and that's why level pedals were so important for this particular move as well. And pressure control just means, again, putting weight on the wheels for more traction, or unweighting the wheels to go over something light or to make a move. So as you enter a corner, you can drop the shoulders and drop the hips a little bit and push into the corner. That's weighting that bike, pressure control, more traction. As you exit, push away and unweight the bike, which will allow you to better right the bike to exit onto the outside or the end of the trail.
Okay.
Another version is fore-aft pressure control or weighting and unweighting. As you enter the turn, drop the shoulders, push the front end into the turn, which is great for aggressive front end handling and traction. As you move through that turn, the body's going to shift slightly back, and as you exit, more weight is pressured onto the back wheel, which allows you to get on those pedals hard and accelerate away.
There's lots to do when you're down on the ground, and putting these moves together and taking air will launch your riding to the next level. And speaking of the next level, let's go there now with downhill racer and freeride extraordinaire, Shaums March. Man, that was some sweet footage of Shaums March out there. Talk about flow. That guy's got lots of it. What do you think, Damo?
Yeah, he's amazing, and he's really taking the basics to the next level. So why don't we have a look at that? His neutral position, what we've talked about earlier, have a look at what's different here. He's more aggressive because he moves his shoulders over that front wheel, over the handlebars. He has more weight on that front wheel. That really allows him to be more aggressive through cornering, through negotiating the terrain, and throwing the bike, lunging it forward or moving it side to side. Which brings us to bike body separation. You can see he's got that nice bow in the elbows and the cowboy knees. Really important because you can throw that bike side to side as the terrain demands, just reacting to it. Lastly, pressure control. We talked about weighting and unweighting the wheels. Now we're going to look at some independent weighting and unweighting of the wheels. In this shot, you can see Shaums riding through. He unweights over the rock and extends those arms and weights the wheel through that transition. On the other side, he allows it to absorb, unweighting again, and then pushing through. Same with the legs. You see the unweighting of the legs and then a pushing down of the legs. And in cornering is another place where you use that. As you ride in, you unweight through the corner, drop the hips and the shoulders, weight through that corner for more traction, and then as you exit, there's that unweighting again and riding away. It's some great riding.
Awesome, yeah. Unbelievable. And one of the most important things about a great ride is being able to stop on a dime. And that's where we get into braking, stopping, slowing down on the trail. Key things to remember, it's important to always have one finger on the lever at all times. You'll notice that all of our riders in this DVD have one finger on the lever at all times to react instantaneously should they need to. Also keep in mind that your front brake is traction control. It slows you down, speed control, keeps that rear end from swapping around on you. Familiarize yourself with the different kinds of braking surfaces, different braking thresholds. Play with the incline a little bit, your speed. Staying off that front brake a little bit in corners, over obstacles, really sharp transitions. Just remembering to let that front wheel roll through sometimes, carry its momentum, and you're good to go pretty much. What do you say, Joan?
Nice tips on braking, Els. Well, I'll add one to go with that nice selection you guys have. And how about that bracing leg? If we can really pay attention to using it, it's the key to letting us get our body more over the front end for that aggressive handling that you were talking about at the front end. So it's that bracing leg that really reminds you you're not going over the bars. You can work that front end harder. And the ankles are another one we could touch on. We've talked about heel down position for bracing leg. We've talked about toe down for clawing. Well, those ankles need to be flexible so that they can move back and forth from heel down to toe down.
So don't break them.
Don't break them. And the last thing, because it's my favorite, is just to mention a couple of things about eye movement, about picking the line well ahead of time. Pick the line, choose the one that's right for you. And the faster you go, the further ahead to look. So we could finish on this shot riding through a nice corner. You'll see the riders looking right at the exit of the corner as they come into the corner.
So Joan, in closing, your thoughts?
Sometimes your confidence gets a bit shaky out there. Just feel free to back it off for yourself. Go ride some easier stuff and build your confidence again.
Yeah, absolutely. Confidence is such a huge part of this sport, as we all know.
Yeah.
Damo, what would you like to finish her off with?
Well, it's important is when you get out there and ride, really enjoy the process, the whole experience, even the climbing, although we do love to go downhill. And if you are on a trail and you're just not feeling it that day, or there's an obstacle you're not feeling the flow, take a step back, maybe come back tomorrow and try it because it will be there tomorrow. Last and not least, make sure you have fun.
Absolutely, and obviously staying healthy and remembering to respect the trail on which you ride. I mean, that's what brings us all here right now, is the opportunity to have all these wonderful trails to ride on. Take care of them, don't litter, don't be a jerk to other trail users. Ride, don't slide. Learn how to brake properly so that you do less destruction to the trail. And participate in trail days, join a club, get involved with your community bike shop. These are the kinds of things that grow the sport and as a result get us even more trails to ride on. So on that note, like Damo was saying, have fun.
Put your ear to the ground. Can you hear the sound of a million feet marching to the rhythm of the drum? But I hear a different voice inside telling me to stand my ground. I've never been one to stand in line and wait for my turn. So just can't let it be.